Welcome to Franchise Marketing Radio, brought to you by SeoSamba. Comprehensive high-performing marketing solutions for mature and emerging franchise brands. To supercharge your franchise marketing, go to SeoSamba.com. That's SeoSamba.com.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Franchise Marketing Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today I have with me Matteo Rachocki with Voodoo Brewery. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to learn about what you got going on. Tell us about Voodoo Brewery. How are you serving folks?
Voodoo Brewery is manufacturing and retail based brewing company that we are headquartered here in Meadville, Pennsylvania. We produce about 4,000 barrels of beer here annually at this point in time. Started with one brewery and one tap room, and we've expanded to 7 retail locations that are corporately owned, as well as a second and larger manufacturing brewery. We founded in 2005. We are partially employee owned and growing every year. We've just recently decided to break off the direct-to-retail program by way of a franchise model.
Now, how did that decision come about? What attracted you to franchising?
Well, after opening 7 successful corporate stores, we really felt like we had it more or less figured out. And the more stores we've added to the portfolio here, we've refined a lot of things, like our packaging and palletizing and delivery systems. We centralized all of the bulk manufacturing of our food products for our kitchens. So we felt like with all of that in mind, it was really well incubated for a franchise model. And one of the partners, Jake, it was his brilliant idea one day to say, I really think that we could do this. And it's a little non-conventional for a brewery to franchise just the retail store side of the business. A lot of these other brewing franchise opportunities do include the brewery part. So what's great is, this is kind of an opportunity to own and manage a brew pub, without all of the headache and, very refined knowledge it takes to run a manufacturing entity as well. So that's really kind of how it happened.
So now how are you going to address kind of one of the attractions to consumers about these artisanal craft breweries is that local flavor and the kind of creativity of the local owner?
Well, I do think there's kind of 2 sides to that. What we are finding, not just regionally, but nationally, globally, the craft beer drinker, especially those who are frequenting, the craft beer retail locations, they are looking for products, not only of a certain caliber, but this whole, as much as you'd like to source locally and regionally, people's palates are being really refined towards certain flavors, and, Southern Hemisphere hops are a major part in that. So I don't necessarily think that the proximity of where the beer comes from is particularly as important as one may think, because the flip side of that is, you have a business that is independently owned and operated, that's hiring, folks, employees from the region. We are actively involved in all kinds of nonprofit and charity work with the local organizations, the giving back, to the communities where these independent stores are located. We participate in those local beer events and festivals. And I think even though the beer is not manufactured per se locally, it's still very much a local business.
Now, part of the growth of your business individually prior to franchising was kind of creating that sense of ownership and the employee-owned element of it. Is that going to transfer to the franchisees? Is that going to be a recommendation? Is that how is that going to come into play?
Yes. So from my understanding, and again, a lot of the legal and the sales side of this is a big part of what Jake has and continues to do here. My understanding is that there is, obviously recommendations for the employee ownership, the ESOP model at these retail locations, especially for independent owners who are looking to do multiple units. We are offering, some incentives and things on the franchise transaction side to, try to encourage that if possible.
Now, as you're growing, are you starting out kind of regionally and expanding out from where you started, or is it now kind of a free-for-all and the whole country is available?
Well, so yeah, it definitely started regionally. The first one that we sold and opened is in Cleveland, which is only about an hour and a half from our headquarters, and only about an hour from our Erie store, which is, pretty close. The second one that we sold and is in operation is in New Kensington, which is about a 40-minute drive from our Homestead pub. And again, probably another hour and a half or so from headquarters. So these locations were very close by. We have one that's opening in 2 weeks out in Indiana, Pennsylvania. So another Pennsylvania one. That's about a 2.5-hour drive from headquarters. And again, probably only about an hour from our State College store. So what's nice about those is, it did kind of happen organically more on a regional locale, because we didn't really have a whole lot of marketing behind this until just recently partnering with Raintree. They kind of organically sold by almost word of mouth and a little bit of, customer coming in and finding out about it being available. So it's kind of like a natural progression for them to kind of start locally. And yes, right now we are expanding out. We have compliance with most states throughout the United States. We are obviously focusing a lot in areas where we already currently have wholesale distribution, which is an important piece of how this comes together with the manufacturer, the wholesaler, and the retailer. But there would be no area in the that we would not be able to consider opening a store and working out those arrangements.
Now, is there kind of a makeup of a market that makes a good Voodoo Brewery market? Is it like close to colleges? Is there, certain level of suburbs, exurbs that make a certain area more attractive than others?
Yeah, so we definitely think that, there's a sweet spot hovering between like the 5,000 and 6,000 square foot kind of retail footprint, if you will. We work very creatively with, very different dynamic spaces. We definitely like being in downtown communities, not necessarily downtown major city communities, but maybe like a suburb, outskirt, potentially like an up and coming or developing neighborhood has been traditionally where we find a lot of success. But at this point in time, there's not a whole lot of areas where we don't feel that it won't fit. We don't really look at much from like a strip mall or situation like that at this point. They're usually kind of standalone units that become an anchor store or a very community driven initiative.
What about markets that have X number of craft brewers already kind of there? Is that a good sign, or do you prefer to be the first one there, or do you like it to be more mature where there's several?
I think these days you'd be hard pressed to be the first one anywhere. But I do think that, yes, there is a saturation point. And at the same time, you want to be cognizant of very developed brands in certain communities. Voodoo Brewing has a bit of a reputation nationally, perhaps even globally, due to the peer-led beer festival circuit that we participate very much in, as well as hosting one of our own here, our Good Vibes Festival here in Meadville every year in July. I think that will help separate the business that we incubate in a community, despite what other opportunities are and options are available to the consumer. I do think there's a point where, the high tide rises all boats. And I think right now we've never seen that more displayed than ever, with communities supporting businesses, small businesses, during this very trying year. So I do think that is a true facet of what we are doing and what we look for. But there is going to be a point where that does become saturated, especially if you have a couple of more well-known and acclaimed breweries in a small proximity.
Now, what does a franchisee look like? Are they people that have maybe own their own existing franchises, food and beverage franchises, or are some of these just kind of super fans, like you mentioned, that want to expand into, maybe second career or second acts? So far, it's been the latter. I can speak from the experience, only so far into this new initiative that we're doing is we've got franchisees that are either starting their first business with a Voodoo franchise or starting their first franchise business with a Voodoo franchise. So it's definitely more people who are looking for creative ways to, like you said, that second act or, doing something that they love. Having a passion, maybe owning their own business. It does take a lot of the pressure off starting a business, especially retail bar restaurant style business, where a lot of the guesswork gets taken out. You get the benefit of not experiencing all of the mistakes that we have learned when we deliver, the documentation on how these function. So it has been attractive to that latter group. So far, I do think it'll have some great momentum and opportunity when it's marketed to seasoned franchisors. But at the end of the day, we'll have to see if that's the case. And let's talk a little bit about your relationship with Raintree. How did that evolve?
So we were very fortunate to have met them. We met them virtually. Jake did. And was very impressed with their tactic and the reputation that they've had. They're very selective. So at the end of the day, we were actually flattered to even get the response back. They're interested in a meeting. And a couple of meetings turned into them coming to the brewery for a long weekend. And we shot a bit of a promo video. And this was all as we're kind of in the courting stages of partnering unofficially. Basically as us as a franchise client of their marketing arm. And I think for whatever reason, it was a couple too many Voodoo beers. We got to talking about, it doesn't happen often, but, Raintree or some of its partners actually on occasion will potentially invest in the franchised business and bring the full force of their marketing and skill set to the table. And so that's really where those conversations developed into more of a formal partnership with some of the Raintree partners and Voodoo licensing, Voodoo franchise group. So we were, it was a very natural progression with a group of very like-minded individuals that we really seemed to hit it off.
And so then this allowed you to, each of you, focus in on what you do rather than kind of all of a sudden you're in the franchising business, because that's a different business really than running a business, right? It's more of a training, development, and sales organization.
Right. It's oddly familiar to parts of the beer industry, right? I mean, making beer, no. Having to come up with a brand and marketing it and compliance and sales of those products, ultimately, it's oddly familiar. But we are not the experts by any means. We are a novice at best, and we very much were learning, as we went. What Raintree was bringing is what I would call a very high level, an expert level of this sales and marketing and support for a very new concept for a franchise. And that's kind of been the Voodoo way. You know, we being employee owned and hiring some of the best people in the industry, you know, we kind of let everybody do their thing and stay out of each other's way and focus on their departments and excel in their craft. And sure, there's some overlap, but, you know, we've done very well by letting everybody kind of stick to their wheelhouse, if you will. And this is no exception to that. You know, you bring on a group like Raintree that's their specialty. That's what they bring to the table. They're the experts. We'll let them run with it. So we felt that it was a very good game plan on how we were going to approach, you know, what we had started at a very higher level.
Now, when you have an employee owned operation like you do, how does that come into play when you're making a decision of this magnitude? Did you bring this up to everybody and say, hey, this is what we're considering? Was this made? And then you tell them that this is what we've decided? How do you kind of navigate that kind of, it's a big decision.
It is a big decision. At this point, when it came to the franchise model, we didn't sit down and have a big family meeting about it. You know, we have a very large organization with a lot of employees. Many of them work on the retail level as, you know, service managers, bartenders, you know, folks in the kitchen. What we did was take more or less department heads. So employees who are heads of departments, maybe my director of culinary, my director of, you know, business development, you know, our retail director, you know, our production team, a few, you know, marketing director, all these people kind of came together and, you know, we looked at this that way. And ultimately, you know, based on any corporation, how your bylaws are written, you know, it just comes down to essentially either a decorum or some kind of a vote from your directors and officers. So at the end of the day, that's really ultimately how these more refined decisions are made is you know, kind of pulling from different areas of the business and the people who are overseeing those departments and then trying to make a decision in that way.
And then when you were kind of debating the pros and cons of franchising, like there had to be some people that were like, I don't know about this. But there was a debate and a consensus, obviously, to go forward with franchising.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you're going to do a bit of a SWOT analysis with any decision of this magnitude. And yes, there's definitely, you know, some pros and cons, you know, but at this point, you know, we really felt that, especially when we're getting, you know, calls and things from, you know, community development agencies, redevelopment agencies, economic, you know, progress alliance agencies, you know, it really made us feel like we were making the right decision by doing this because if you can have a business that has proven success, especially as an anchor business or a pilot project for a redevelopment initiative, you know, that's something that we feel very good about and we have a lot of experience with. And it really does feel like it's much bigger than beer. It's much bigger than a restaurant. You know, it's much bigger than a brew pub. You know, sometimes these projects can transcend whatever you perceive it to be on the surface. So it almost became, you know, a much bigger project than what meets the eye.
Well, I think that the impact in all these communities and the scale you can get so quickly can really make a difference in a lot of communities, especially struggling ones. You know, when this pandemic wanes and people get back out there, this is going to be kind of a rallying place.
Well, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That it seems interesting to launch a franchise marketing initiative, especially for a retail restaurant centric style business during, you know, this past year with everything that's going on. But really, it's actually been almost like the perfect storm because we are having these conversations with people who are trying to refine current models, look at investment opportunities differently. You know, there's a lot of real estate opportunity out there right now. There's a lot of license availability out there right now. So there's a lot of pieces of this that oddly made sense to a lot of potential, you know, franchisees. And that's why we are so busy having conversations with people about, you know, these offers, because there's never been a more unique time to venture out and do a business, whether it's the first time or the 10th time. in a way where you've got a little bit more confidence in its success.
Now, what do you need more of? How can we help you?
I mean, as always, we're looking for great leads. We love, very hands-on individuals who are looking for an opportunity like what we're offering. As you know, in this industry, for every, I think it's like a ratio, and Jake would be able to say it better, but they say, for every 100 leads, you have maybe one tangible lead, one that, arrives to a much more in-depth conversation about, the offers. And, obviously that's a good starting point for us right now is, kind of reaching out in all corners and seeing what folks might be interested in.
Well, congratulations on all the success. It's a great story, and you should be very proud of what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you very much. It means the world to us. We feel confident in what we're doing, and we're excited about what we're doing, and we hope to get some other people excited as well.
And if somebody wanted to learn more, have a more substantive conversation with you or somebody on your team, what's the website?
Just go to voodoobrewry.com, and there is a tab on the left side of the screen that has, start your own or have your own, and it'll bring you to a page where you can fill out a form, and it has a plethora of information available for you.
Good stuff. Well, thank you again for sharing your story today, Matteo.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. This is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on Franchise Marketing Radio.